So we will learn to use equations to model situations with percentages. Okay, so let's start off with some review. We've already kind of covered this, changing words into sentences and solving. So I'm going to go through this page rather fast because we've already covered this. So when a number, we'll call that x, is decreased, that means what? Subtraction by 12. The result is, means equals. So write an equation to model the word description I did, then solve for the number. Well, that's not bad. I just add 12 to both sides and I get x equals 40, right? Now we're at the age, we're seniors, where a one-step equation you could probably do in your head. So I add 12, add 12. 28 plus 12 is 40. Next, when 2 times a number, we'll call the number x, is decreased by, and we said decrease means subtraction, the result is 11. So I just wrote the number sentence, or I'm sorry, the equation. Now you might be able to do these in your head, but I'm going to ask that you show work anyway. So we have this as part of our answer. And then we solve. We add 3 to both sides. Divide 2. And you get 7. We have this. And this. So 7. If you take 2 times 7, which is 14, and you decrease that by 3, you get 11. That's true. All right, so both of those were brand new. Now let's go into something slightly new. When a number, we'll call that x, is decreased by, that would be subtraction, 20% of itself. 20% of itself, well, itself is x. So 20% of itself would be, remember 20% is 0.2, so it would take off 0.2x. So when a number is decreased by 20% of itself, the result is 20. So I wrote my number sentence. Now solving that, this is 1x. And if you want to put a 0 there, you can. Maybe that's easier to understand. So an x is like a 1x. 0.2 is the same thing as 0.20. Now $1 minus 20 cents would be 80 cents. So those are like terms on the same side. I combine them. And then to solve that, I would divide by 0.8. Or 0.80, same thing. And what is 20 divided by 0.8? Anyone have a calculator? Nobody? It's 25. So x equals 25. Let me see if that makes sense. So if you take a number, 25, and decrease it by 20% of itself, 20% of 25, well, 10% of 25 is 2.5. 10% of 25 is 2.5. So 20% would be 2 of those, would be 5. So if you take 25 minus 5, you get 20. Is all that saying? Okay. Now how did I get 10% of 25 is 2.5? You just place over when you do 10%. And 20% is 2 of those. Very good if you're shopping, very useful, and you need to figure out how much something may cost. Next. Same thing. When a number is decreased by 30% of itself, the result is 28. There is nothing different from problem 4 to problem 3. Solve. See, $1 minus 30 cents would be 70 cents. And then take 28 divided by 0.7. And you get 40. So we have this. And this. So write an equation to model the worksheet, then solve x is 40. So let me think about that. When a number, which is 40, is decreased by 30% of itself, well, 10% of 40 is 4. So 30%, 3 of those, 4, 8, 12. So when 40 is subtracted by 12, you get 28. That's a true statement. When a number, which we found is 40, is decreased by 30% of 40, which 30% of 40 would be 4, 8, 12. 30 minus 12 is, 40 minus 12 is 28. Next, when 60% of a number, so that'd be what, 0.6x, is added plus, correct? That number, well, what's the number? Of a number, we call it x. Can you guys see the x? Can you see the x? To that number would just be x. The result is 192. So 60% of a number is added to that number. The result is 192. So that is my equation. Solve. Again, I'm just putting the 1 there. You don't have to, but it just makes fewer mistakes. So if you take 60 cents and add it to $1, you get 1.60. And then divide by 1.6. Or 1.60. And what's that? 120. So I just found x is 120. And I know you did this in Algebra 1, but it's good review. Let me see. 60% of 120. Well, 10% of 120 is 12, right? 6 of those, 6 times 12 is 72. So that would be 72. So when 72 is added to 20, you get 192. That's true. I like checking my answers. Okay, the next one is just like this one. When 80% of a number to that number, the result is 252. Right? Same exact problem, just different words. Different numbers. Solve it. .8. 1 and .8 makes 1.8. Divide by 1.8. Should get 140. Is that right? That is right. %80 of 140. I could take 14 times 8, or I could take 10%, which is 14, and subtract out 14 twice. So I could either take 14 times 8, I could just take 14 times 2, which is 28, and subtract that from 140, which is 40 minus 28. 118? I'm subtracting out 28. 18, well, 22, right? Isn't it 22? Huh? 122? Yes, 122. So when 122 is added to 140, I get 252. That's correct. Say what? 112? Did I say 122? When 112 is added, thank you, to 140, you get 252. Any questions so far? Percentages? All right, next. %70 of what number is 220? Well, the answer is going to be bigger than 224 because you're taking 70% of it and getting 224. So 70% of 0.7 of what number, let's call that X, is 224. So 70% of what number is 224? Well, it's solved. They didn't say to solve, but I'm guessing they want us to. 0.7x equals 224. Divide 224 by 0.7, and I get 320. If I take 70% of 320, I get 224. To check my work, to find 70%, 10% would be 32, and then 32 times 7 would be 7%. Okay. Next, I would have you try this by yourself, but I'm just going to keep going. 20% of what number? 20% of what number makes 12. So there's my number, sentence. And then I solve. And I get 60. And that one's easy to check. 20%, well 10% would be 6, 20% would be 12. Okay? So 20% of 60 is 12. Easy to check. Any questions so far? No? Alright, these are a little bit trickier, but I would still not call these difficult. After a 20% reduction. After a 20% reduction. So you have your price you pay. Okay? So what was the original price? We'll let that be X. So let's say a TV costs dollars. You don't know how much this TV cost, but it was reduced by 20%. So what would I subtract off? 0.2x, right? And then you get the TV for $336. Now this is not how I do the problem when I'm at the store. If it's 20% off, then I say, well, I'm paying 80% of the price. So I take 80% of the price. That's how I think. Does that make sense though? If the TV costs X dollars and you take off 20%, that will be your new price. You paid $336. Therefore, X has to be bigger than $336. That's with the 20% discount. Solve. One minus 0.2 is 0.8. Divide 336 by 0.8. And I get 420. The TV cost originally $420. So it cost $420, but after that 20% discount, I only had to pay $336. Does that make sense? If you shop or you go to the store or anything, equals to half. Okay, the next one is exactly the same. Okay, so Christina, what do you think the equation would be? Equals $30.80. Good. And then we solve that. One minus 0.3 is 0.7. Divide by 0.7. And we get 44. So the dictionary the original price of the dictionary was $44. Past tense. That's no longer the price. And in fact, this must be an outdated word problem. No one pays for dictionaries anymore. They're in the landfills. No one buys them. We all have, we look that up on their phones. I shouldn't say nobody buys them, but almost nobody buys them. Questions? Now this one is kind of funny. I have 2 daughters, and they get money for chores, and they go to the store and they have $3 in their pocket, and they're confused when the store says $3, but then they get to the cashier, and the cashier doesn't want $3. The cashier wants $3.21, and I have to explain sales tax. In the state of Kansas and Missouri, when you buy something, almost always there's a sales tax. Some parts of the country there are not sales tax. You just pay what, walk to the store, and there is no sales. So after adding an 8% sales tax, well, first let the original price. We're trying to find that, so let's let that be X. And it's a MacBook Pro. So the original price. So you're going to pay that. We don't know how much. It's a MacBook Pro. But you're going to add on an 8% sales tax. Adding 8%. Don't forget about that 0. 8% is 0.08, 9% is 0.09, 10% is 0.1, right? So after adding an 8% to the original price, your bill was $1,404 for a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So what was that original price? Well, solve. When I do these, I just write it down as 1.08. I'm like, okay, 1.08 means I paid for itself and 8%. That's what 1.08 means. But 1 plus 0.08 is 1.08. So again, when I do these, I skip straight to 1.08 in my head, because that means you paid for it, that's what the 1 is, and then the 0.08 is 8%. Divide by 1.08. And that is $1,300. The original price was $1,300. And I don't know if you've ever bought a computer, but a really nice computer, you should plan on about $1,000. If you just want a computer that gets the job done, you probably get one for $200 or $300. Mr. Bruss is selling a calculator for $15. Perhaps he has an extra TI-83 and he's selling them. This price is 25% more than what he paid for it. That's how stores work. They buy it wholesale from somewhere.